Now moving on to the first panel discussion. We will have a few people here live and one people with us on Zoom. So it's now my pleasure to introduce the panelists. Jörgen Axelsson from Setterwalls. Please come up on stage. Welcome. And we have Niclas from Holmberg, from Nasdaq, Global Listings Manager at Nasdaq. And we have also from Ericsson, Hanna Maurer Sibley, who is Head of Networks at Ericsson. Warm welcome to you, Hanna. And we have with us on Zoom, Pellbeck Scharp from Ericsson. And I'm going to join you here and on this chair. So, 5G. Let's start talking about 5G for a minute or two, each one of you. Hanna, would you like to start? What is the impact of 5G on Internet of Things, the connection here, and what can we look forward to in the future?
Well, I think we have lots of things to look forward to. Of course, it's a favorite topic if you ask anyone from Ericsson what 5G can do for industries, for IoT, for the personal lives of all of us. So I hope we have plenty of things to look forward to. 5G is, as we know, rolling out globally now. We will have it also here in Sweden, not too far out, we hope. And the benefit that 5G brings to all of us is quite big if we decide as an industry to realize it. So the capacity can be doubled or tripled or actually up to 100 times, depends on how much spectrum each of the countries will have and deploy into. The latency can be heavily reduced so that you can have the fingertips can be your, probably the longest time is your own reaction time when you come into getting to these applications and the self-steering cars and so forth. So I think 5G, once it's deployed, can really change things and it can be a really high impact to IoT and to all of our lives.
Let's move to Mats, who's with us here on Zoom. Pellbeck Scharp, he's Head of Sustainability at Ericsson. And the implications for your work with sustainability at Ericsson of 5G, Mats?
Yeah, thank you. I think from a sustainability perspective, of course, I don't know if we realize this, but most of the drivers that we are seeing right now are coming from sustainability. I don't think that, for instance, heavy transports would move from diesel to renewables or electrification if it wasn't for the sustainability aspects. The same is valid across the board. So it is in fact one of the great drivers, but also one of the great opportunities to solve some of the problems. And I think in the Exponential Roadmap report that we participated in writing together with civil society and academia, it is clear that we will not be able to make and solve the climate crisis without digitalization and 5G. And why 5G then? I mean, most of the things that we do today on massive IoT, we can do on 4G and narrowband IoT, but the 5G is the difference. For instance, I talked about heavy vehicles, and that is one of my favorite examples. I think that it will be a convergence between the transport infrastructure, the electricity grid, electricity infrastructure, and the mobile infrastructure, specifically as all of these vehicles are moving around. And that is to manage the power requirements, and you need sort of edge cloud, the latency topics to be able to manage these when you connect these heavy vehicles in massive, and also then managing it on a grid based on renewables instead of big revolving masses in the networks that stabilize the network.
Thank you very much, Pellbeck Scharp. Niclas Holmberg, from Nasdaq's perspective, many of these companies will be talking about 5G and the Internet of Things. From your perspective, what could you say about this development?
Yes, I come actually direct from a listing with a German gaming company listed at Nasdaq First North, and all the power that comes with 5G, it will up new companies, new solution. Brave entrepreneurs will take these ideas, and then Nasdaq will be happy to support them and take them to the next level. And I also think that a lot of this company will have a lot of interest, not just from institutional investors, but also from the extremely strong equity culture that we have in Sweden from retail investors. So I think that's a lot of opportunities for good growth within these companies.
So Jörgen, from Setva's perspective, regulations in this field, what comments can you bring to us?
Yeah, we have to start with to ensure that everyone is able to use 5G, and we may start to say Sweden is a little bit behind, but in end of this year, presumably in November, the auction will take place, and after that we have a frequency on the operators. So that's kind of the first step to build the infrastructure platform, you may say. However, maybe that's not the most challenging thing in the legal perspective. The more challenging thing is coming, and that's actually related to data. There will be a tremendous flow of data, and honestly, the EU is behind both United States and also China, and there is now a lot of ambitions on the EU level to try to take some really big step forwards. The EU have had a little bit other aspect on this comparing with the US and maybe China as well. That is, we started actually to focus on the personal data, how to secure fair treatment of personal data. Now we have this lovely GDPR framework in place, and now it's time for the next step. How should we protect data? How should data be used between different players in the private field?
And do you foresee any timeline for this being in place?
Well, timeline. The EU, they have actually they have started a lot of work in this. We will hopefully see some concrete work during next year. However, we always have to remember that EU is not that fast. It's always the Commission, the Parliament, and so on. But there's a lot of white papers, there are a lot of other initiatives from the Commission that is in place, and hopefully during next year we will see some concrete work. And it's very much focused from the EU perspective on this kind of questions, because from a Swedish perspective, I think we have to remember we always have to treat this at least on the EU level.
Thank you very much, Jörgen Axelsson. Hanna, Maurer, Sibley, in terms of, is there anything that is too far in this field of IoT and AI? Do we have to regard any limits, any borders for this development?
Well, any limits? I guess we always say that the sky is the limit, right? But I really can't see that right now we know what the limit would be in that case. But I think if we look at what we have seen for now, when we introduced 4G globally, we saw that brought up the app ecosystems, right? I mean, everyone has now, we're all glued to our smartphones, right? And all that industry, and you talked about the industry growth. So that whole, ecosystem just exploded with the mobile data. So now we will have 5G. So what can that bring then? And what would the limit be? But I think let's look more at the opportunities. If we had this app ecosystem really blooming and evolving after we had mobile data with 4G, maybe it would be the enterprises and the industries and the digitalization of industries. That would be the new ecosystem with 5G. Maybe that would be the fun new thing to look forward to. And I'm sure there will be lots of companies that would be interested in that growth. So anything we heard earlier here from TechPool, for example. So anything from connected industries, connected devices, making sure people don't have to be in hazardous environments, right? Maybe we don't want to be having people in mines or on oil platforms or in places where people really shouldn't be. So I think I would like to say that instead of creating limits, let's try to remove the places where we don't want to be at. Let's try to make sure that the industrial 4.0, for example, really gets a good connectivity with 5G in order to take the next step, to be more efficient, to be more safe, and to just really unlock lots of new value with 5G.
Thank you very much, Hanna. Mats, what is your opinion of the there is a debate on some platforms in society about the health hazards and environmental hazards of 5G. Or what could you say about this to reassure us?
Well, I think there is, from a physical perspective, there is no difference on radio waves if you use them for 2G, 3G, radio, TV, and so on, or if you use them for 5G. So all of that, I think, is the fear for the new to a large degree, and an opportunity for people that are interested in creating some sort of havoc or unease to raise concerns because of digital, social media. It's easier now to get concerns driven around. So I think that there is no difference, and for us and for everybody that builds 5G, we are following the same safety standards that we have done before, and there is no evidence whatsoever on any risks related to radio signaling. So I think that, and that has been reaffirmed by a lot of authorities around the world, and they also include 5G in those statements. So I think we can rest reassured that this will not change that from that perspective.
Thank you very much for clearing this out for us, Mats. Niclas, in this era or this time of the pandemic, we shouldn't call it an era because we definitely do not like it, for obvious reasons, in terms of demand for companies that focus on virtual services, what can you say from the Nasdaq perspective?
Yes, of course, there are many kind of sectors or companies that have benefit from the COVID-19, and what we right now see, we were supposed to have a very strong pipeline for Q2 this year, but some of the processes was just stopped. The whole market tried to understand what is happening right now. So some of them are coming back right now, and then you also see the new company that for example, 1,200 company owned by PEs, private equity firms today, and of course 1 of 10 of them have benefit and have a completely different level in terms of valuation right now. But what we would like to highlight, and that I think is very interesting for us as Swedes, is that we have so many new companies coming up, new technologies, brave entrepreneurs, and investors today understand, also non-Nordic investors, that if you would like to be part of a growth journey, look in the north, look at Sweden, because here you can help the company and take the company to the next level. With that said, in the rest of Europe, you have family and friends, business angels, and VCs that support the company, but you don't have the public market. And if you're a company that sell your product maybe to large corporates or to government, it also means a lot of in terms of credibility to be a public company. So some of this company will benefit to be listed on Nasdaq, not just for raising capital, but also in terms of credibility, because maybe the founder is 29 years old and you are just 15 people within the company, and they manage to get large contracts. So when I'm looking for growth on Nasdaq First North, I see that we can help them with a lot of things. Also, we try to open up our network. If the company want to increase their business to the US market, we'll make sure that they have the right connection. So we hope to be a part of this growth for Swedish fantastic companies. Yes.
Thank you. And Jörgen, from Setva's perspective, do you have any comments on what Niclas just said in terms of growth and the look at the north?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We are working heavily in the technology sector, and I think we are assisting a lot of the companies knocking on Nasdaq's door. I think it's many different interesting areas. I think we have a particular focus on the fintech sector. That's also due for regulations and so on. It's opening up the traditional banks that will be challenged from newcomers. We have also seen, especially now during this pandemic, that the health tech sector is a huge sector, and we see, of course, a lot of companies that have a lot of clients in that sector. And then, of course, the 5G is also, I mean, the basic for IoT, the industry, and we have clients in that sector. And then we haven't mentioned it, but the cloud. I mean, there is the traditional cloud industry, if there is such thing as a traditional cloud industry, but that will also be a bit challenged from other players. So there's a lot of things going on in the technology sector, and I'm happy that we are working a lot with clients in that sector.
Yeah, and just to comment on sectors that we see strong growth within, it's clean tech companies. So I was down in the Lund last week, meeting 5-6 companies, and some of them said, okay, we have a great solution now, but when 5G will be possible for us, we have a next level of our products. So even I think that we can use that in a very ESG-friendly company that will benefit from that. And I think I have 6-7 companies now within clean tech, broader clean tech, that are looking for IPOs opportunities. So that is nice.
That's promising. Right, Mats, being a sustainability officer, promising with the ESG focus. Mats, Ericsson is very much involved in the exponential climate roadmap work. Could you give a few words on the connection with what you see in this work and what we need to focus on investing in companies that really work on ESGs and clean tech?
I think that what we see today is that we need to halve emissions by 2030 to have a chance to reach the 1.5 degree that is so dearly needed if you look on the International Panel of Climate Change. And halving emissions in this short time will be impossible if we don't scale the solutions very, very fast. So I think that investing in the right solutions and the right digital solutions will help us scale the things that we need to do, and that is across sectors. And clean tech is, of course, a word for making more energy efficient solutions and other things, but they also serve across industries and across sectors. So I think that from that perspective, what we see, for instance, is that the ICT sector, our sector, is 1.5% of the global emissions, but we can, and we have demonstrated through Ericsson research and other company research, that we can enable savings in other sectors with up to 15% of the global emissions. So 10 times our industry's emission we can reduce in other sectors, in transport, in smart buildings we heard earlier, in agriculture and across the board. So, but we need to scale these solutions fast. So I think that is really the key message. How can we get them to scale and use the existing solutions and scale them fast?
Thank you very much, Mats. And we saw already in the first company's presentations that there is a strong focus on this, right? Hanna, Jörgen mentioned cloud. I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about the technology evolution towards cloud and AI.
Right. So traditional cloud infrastructure or players, it's great. I guess we've come pretty far in cloud now. We have traditional players. So the cloud is, of course, really important when we are going to realize these low latency and very high compute type of use cases. We talk about use cases in the 5G era. And if you have, for example, an industry where you want to have multiple cameras set up, you want to make sure that a certain person in the factory are making, the component fitting in the right type of vehicle or car or whatever it could be in the right place, and it's the right component. It's not the wrong component, because that also has safety. So the cloud compute will be important to have, sometimes very, very local, very central to where the computing is needed. So then you can talk about a distributed cloud in the sense where you actually have computer and data rendering really close to where the use cases are performed. On the other hand, you can also talk about that you can collect lots of compute power and data power up in the cloud further away from where the use cases are being actually activated. And there is, of course, the way that you can have a data lake and you can really make use of more data across many, many types of industries and many types of different factory or floor plants. So I think the cloud is becoming more important in many ways. One is because you can actually have compute close to where it's needed if you want to really have the low latency use cases with self-driving cars and really robots that are talking and working together simultaneously on a factory floor. And then, of course, also to have a more cloud computing environment further away. So cloud is really something that will be stretched across many types of industries and many types of locations. And it's one of the technology cornerstones, I would say, to really make a leveraging part of the 5G era. So we'll see more of cloud, for sure.
Thank you very much, Hanna. Would you like to comment, Jörgen? Yes?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I have worked in the IT sector maybe for 25 years, and traditionally a lot of assignments is related to delivery of IT systems. And I mean, 15 years ago, then it was more of a traditional one. You acquire servers, and then you have data centers and so on. And today, I must say, 90% is cloud. And again, going back to the EU perspective, I mean, honestly, today, if we look on the public cloud and the infrastructure, I mean, we have 3 major suppliers on the public side, and all of them are US-based. And I think from the EU perspective, there is also initiative saying that we have to build up a stronger cloud industry within Europe. Totally. And we see what, so there's a lot of kind of investment, there's a lot of thoughts about regulations and so on, and we will see what's happened on that side. Hopefully also some progress during 2021.
Well, thank you very much. In terms of IoT, let's take a step back and focus on that again. IoT in the 5G area. Hanna, I'd like you to give us some forecasting.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, go ahead. Bring it on.
Forecasting. Oh, my, that's not my strong area, I must say. So what we're looking at is, of course, the number of connected IoT devices, right? And we've talked about the billion connected devices, 25 billion connected devices. What does that really mean? So exactly where we will land, I think it's more of, a vision that we want to state, right? But, and I think many of us don't really think about that we're all already in an IoT world. We just don't really think about it maybe all the time. But there are Apple Watches, there are smart homes, there are geolocation of boats, there are turning on your heater in your country house in the winter time, fire alarms that are connected. There's so much already that is IoT, but when we start talking IoT, it feels like, oh, it's something else. But it really, really isn't. It's all about us, and it's all about whatever touch points we have, if it's be in the industry or within ourselves, or if it's our social media connected. So it's all about us, and I think it's already here. So forecasting, I guess, then would be how many connected touch points can we all have as humans? So that will be one. But then, of course, all the stuff around us, right? If everything now gets connected. So I think one of the leaders of Ericsson once said, anything that has a benefit of being connected will eventually be connected.
Well, thank you very much. This is all indeed very exciting and promising, right? Thank you very much, Jörgen, and Niclas, and Hanna, and Mats with us on Zoom for sharing your insights in this first panel talk. Thank you.